I'm Kay, aka Lessons in Tech. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the video. Today I'm talking about the application development process, also known as the SDLC. This will explain to you how applications are developed and all the jobs that are involved in that process. After listening to this video, you'll be able to understand what sort of job you might want to pursue in tech and what that job does. It might be a lot for you to take in, so don't worry about taking notes or anything like that. Just sit back, relax, and try to take in the information. There's a download associated with this video as well that would summarize the information for you. So once again, I'm Kay. Let's talk tech.
So we're going to jump right into this presentation on application development. So the basics of application development I'm going to start with coding because everybody knows what coding is, right? Basically, you have 3 levels of coding. You can code on the application's front end. That's where the people are doing the clicking, right? So you open an app, click something. That's called the user interface or user experience. And something happens on the back end. So usually you enter some information or you click to get some information. That information is stored somewhere. The somewhere is in databases, data warehouses, or data lake, or files. You'll hear all those terms. All of those are talking about data storage, and that's referred to as the back end. Now, something has to connect the front end with the back end, and that's called the middle tier. So coding can happen at any of those levels. So that means that we have developers that specialize in each of those things, and some developers specialize in multiple things. And then there are some people that specialize only in data as well, who are not developers. They're called data analysts. And there are a number of data jobs that are associated with data. I won't go into all of them right now, but just know that coding can happen at multiple levels. Now, once an application is coded, somebody has to make sure that it works. And those are testers. So they're also involved in the application development process. Also, someone has to figure out what to code and how the application should work. That's the analysis piece of this. Somebody keeps track of the schedule and the budget. So you don't just start coding something and when you finish, that's when it's done. No, you have to have a schedule like everything else in the world, from what time you show up at work and the projects you have at work, or school projects, or your classes have a syllabus. Everything runs on a schedule. So too do application development projects. And there's a person that manages that. So that person is called the project manager. And sometimes the business analyst will be also the project manager. And then there are the people who want the project, and those people are called stakeholders. That includes the main customer who's asking for the project, but it can also include other interested parties. There are a couple of other areas involved in application development. So I mentioned one of them is the data storage. So in addition to the data storage that happens with that particular application, there are company-wide experts that work with the data storage. You can think of it as an apartment building, right? So tenants are in each apartment. So if you're in your apartment and something goes wrong with let's say there's a clog in your sink, right? So you'll try to fix that clog yourself. But if you can't fix the clog yourself, you have to call the management of that entire building. And that management helps all the tenants that need help. So the company-wide experts are similar to the management in an apartment building, in that they work with you on an overall level. So if the clog in your sink actually was happening due to a clog someplace else in the building, they would figure that out. So too with company-wide experts. So anybody who needs data storage assistance with the tools that the developers are using on that particular application, these company-wide experts help all the applications. And then the same theory applies with infrastructure people. So those are the people that work with the hardware, devices, laptops, desktops, mobile phones or iPads, servers, and cybersecurity. That's all a part of infrastructure. So those are the areas that are involved in application development. So now that we see all the areas that are involved in application development, let's talk about how that happens from a process perspective. By the way, I want you to not focus on trying to take notes, but just I'm going to give you a slide at the end that has this information on it. But just try to listen and understand and get what the process is, right? You don't have to know it perfectly. You just want to come away from this conversation with an overview of what the different areas are involved in application development and the sequence in which it happens. So let's look at that. So the first thing that happens is somebody wants something done, right? So somebody wants something, right? So an application is meant to solve a problem or take advantage of an opportunity. So the person who wants something is the customer because that's who's going to pay for it. That customer is also referred to as the project sponsor, right? But there may be other groups that are also interested. And so they're all referred to as a stakeholder. As stakeholders, we're going to focus more on the project sponsor for the purposes of this conversation because we want to understand how application development happens with someone paying for it, the main customer. That main customer says, listen, I need a process automated, or the system doesn't do what I need it to do, or I need a new application to do X. That's the project sponsor. So whatever approval process has to happen in the organization will happen, and eventually that project will get green lighted. There'll be an approval, and a project manager will be assigned, right? So that project manager is responsible for understanding the scope of the project. That means how far we're going to go with this project, right? Because let's say a project is paving a road, right? Now, of course, that's not a technology project. This is an analogy. But you can see that if you're paving a road, you have to know which piece of the road you want to pave because some roads are very long and you could pave your way into another town. And that may not be what the sponsor is paying for. So we have to know the scope of the project. The project manager will also be given a budget and told, we want this project in X amount of time. So we expect you to be able to complete this project in 6 months. So we expect this project to be completed in 2 years, whatever it is, right? The project manager is also responsible for putting together the project team. And one of the first people that project manager needs to get is a business analyst. The business analyst will work on the detailed level requirements for the project. So the project manager has the high level requirement. Oh, these are the parameters of the project. This is how much we have to spend. This is kind of when we want it done. And now somebody has to figure out the small details, exactly what has to happen. What are the exact reasons for the project? What are the exact things that the customer is looking for in the project? What are the exact issues, also known as pain points, does the customer have today that they're trying to solve? Business analysts, after getting those requirements, will then design the application or the system. So, in many ways, application development is kind of like building a house. So, if you wanted to build a home, then you would specify what you want the home to be, right? I want 4 bedrooms and 3 baths, 3,000 square feet, or I want 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, 2,500 square feet, whatever it is, right? Those are the overall scope and project. Is your project going to include landscaping? That's part of the scope, right? Just like you see these home shows, they come in, they do a renovation, they say, okay, what are we renovating? That's the scope, right? How much do you have to spend? That's the budget. Now, with that budget and your high level requirement, what exactly can we do? And then you see the designer go through the home and understand which rooms need to change, how they need to change, and come up with a design. That's what the business analyst does. Understands what is the overall scope of the project, what are the specifics of the project, and how to take those requirements and create a design. And then you see on these home shows, after they create the design, they go back to the customer and they say, well, this is what we came up with. What do you think? The business analyst will do that as well. Once the business analyst comes up with the design, the technology team, development team will get involved. Or let's say the tech teams will get involved. So the technology teams are the development team. So they're going to take that functional design. We're going to have 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. The master bedroom is going to have a walk-in closet, and it's going to be on the first floor, and it's going to have an ensuite bathroom, and there's going to be 2 more bedrooms upstairs, right? The development team will figure out how to make that work from a technical perspective. What is the electrical? What is the plumbing, right? What are the internals that have to happen in order to make that application or that system a reality? That's the technical design. When the development team is figuring out, okay, we're going to have to code this, we're going to have to code that, they may come into, you know what, we're going to need a new server. You know what, we need a new database. That database technology that we normally use is not going to be able to work well with what we have to do for this application. So we're going to need to use a different technology. And they will contact the technical experts around the company that specialize in things that are not coding, such as servers and other infrastructure. We need a heightened level of security. So they'll talk to, well, they're always going to talk to the cybersecurity people, right? But maybe there's an extra level of security that's needed. So the technology team will do that, and the business analyst will be involved in knowing what it is they're doing, right? So then they will code application. They will actually write the programs. Once those programs are written, then the quality assurance team or test team will get involved to understand what those programs are supposed to do, write some scripts, which is really some procedures to actually test the application. Go to this screen, into this information, expect the result to look like this. That's what the test team does. The test team comes up with all the scripts to test the application. The business analyst will look at those scripts and approve them or point out any additional areas that the test team may have missed. They'll have an agreement with this. The business analyst approves those scripts. And then the test the application. If the test team finds any issues, then they will notify the development team and the business analyst, and they'll all work together and fix whatever needs to be fixed. Actually, it's the development team fixing it. The business analyst is more there for questions. And once that happens, the system is ready. So now they need to get the approval from the project sponsor, right? So the project sponsor will be shown the system, other stakeholders will be shown the system, and if they approve, they'll come up with a plan to actually implement that system or application. Implementation involves everybody, right? The development team, the project manager, the QA team, the business analyst, the project sponsor, and the stakeholders. Everybody participates in that. This slide is just me making the point to you that there are some other little interactions that I didn't mention because I really want you to focus on a high level what happens, but just to be exact about the application development process. With the requirements, there's a customer review before you move to functional design, right? So the business analyst writes those requirements. That's what I do. I'm a business analyst. I write those requirements. I'll show them to the customer. Customer say, yeah, that sounds like it would deliver what I'm asking for, or no, or you know what, I don't need that piece, and you know what, I want this other thing. And then you take those requirements and you come up with the design, and the customer would approve that design as well. Then the technical design goes to the tech team. The tech team will come up with the technical design, and the BA will review that. Same thing with the code and the testing, the approvals to the customer and other stakeholders, that happens through the BA and the project manager. So this is the application development process, one step after the other. So now you can see in the application development process, there's a lot of different areas to work in, right? So there's what I call the administrative areas of business analyst, project management, like these areas here. Then there's the coding and technical stuff that happens here. Then there's the testing, which is a little bit of coding, a little bit of data, a little bit of administrative. And by the way, the data is in here too. And there's also infrastructure. So that's basically the 4 areas of application development that you can work in. So if you want to work in information technology and IT, there's data, there's coding, there's infrastructure, and there is what I'm calling administrative, right? All the things that didn't fall into those first 3. But there's a lot of different jobs to do. And so I'm going to make this slide available on my website. If you go to ktalkstech.com, you can download this slide. And next time we'll talk about what the different jobs are in each of the 4 areas that I named, and which of those would be more entry level positions, and what they do.